4/6/2016. Transferable motherfucker. This also links to Chronos, the reign of Saturn, the eclogue of Virgil. In this video, once again, I will prove that I am the top martial artist. I, unlike other quote-unquote conspiracy theorists, take a no matter how you slice it approach. I have over 10,000 valid sources, over 20 years of research, 7 years of making videos on YouTube alone, and over 20 years of debating these issues, never losing a debate or even an argument. So I may as well take you through this, and we'll wrap it up. First, I will definitively prove that martial arts means combat practices, and they are referring to war arts. But they're practiced for other reasons, and this is where the misconceptions come in. Then I'll establish that America, historically, does psychological warfare and massive propaganda campaigns, and they're interested in rivalry at sporting events. I will then establish that America is a materialistic culture which confuses martial arts with a sport or some form of entertainment instead of what is actually meant for, which are combat arts, war arts, and that he who is the greatest at transferable skills that pertain to war, that start with hand-to-hand combat, is the greatest martial artist, the top martial artist in reality. Finally, I will establish that America intends to propagate its philosophy around the world and to make the internal organization of America the internal organization of a world government. And that not only neocons such as Robert Kagan and Bruce P. Jackson and John R. Bolton are involved, but all major groups are involved. All right, so in order to fit it on one page, and I already had to make the font either 8 or 10 in order to do it, I took out the key parts of these Wikipedia articles that, like usual, I went over their sources. They're all valid sources, scholarly sources, what have you, expert sources. Martial arts from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. Martial arts are codified systems and traditions of combat practices, which are practiced for a variety of reasons, as self-defense, military and law enforcement applications, as competition, physical fitness, mental and spiritual development, as well as entertainment and the preservation of a nation's intangible cultural heritage. Although the term martial art has become associated with the fighting arts of Eastern Asia, it originally referred to the combat systems of Europe as early as the 1550s. The term is derived from Latin and means arts of Mars, the Roman god of war. So when you look at what they are describing, what the word means, it even is derived from the Roman god of war. And for those of you who have been watching for a while, you know that this is the case, and that I get trolls who want me to talk about martial arts instead of the Great Conspiracy. That's why I have included the Great Conspiracy in this video, and I've thought this through like I always do, and decided that it is worthwhile to make this video, to highlight what I have before, and to put it together in a way that is even more painfully obvious and apparent. The Cold War. Now, for those of you who've been following the news, you know that we are having a Cold War with Russia, and one might argue a Cold War with radical Islam, because of our lack of a definitive military campaign against ISIS and a more of a drone strike, bombing, half-assed campaign, which means that there are elements of a Cold War here, you know, and massive propaganda campaigns and psychological warfare as a result. And for those of you who've been following for quite some time, you know I have a much more favorable view of Islam than America. Therefore, like it or not, my videos are part of this Cold War, and they are not on America's side. However, I am more American than the government is, but we're not going to get into that. Those Johnny-come-lately sons of bitches, and my family has been here from the beginning onward. Anyway, Cold War. Disambiguation, in parentheses. Aside from the development of the two sides, nuclear arsenals, and deployment of conventional military forces, the struggle for dominance was expressed via proxy wars around the globe, psychological warfare, massive propaganda campaigns, and espionage, rivalry at sports events, and technological competitions such as the space race. Isn't that interesting? Out of the few things that they brought up, rivalry at sports events was one of them. When you go back earlier and it talks about the intangible a nation's intangible cultural heritage, you can start to see why martial arts are probably the most important. And when you look back at World War II, right, with Hitler, one of his Nazi goons was defeated at boxing. Boxing. Moving on, which, by the way, is a sport and not true martial arts. And to argue that the mixed martial arts, UFC, ultimate fighting, it's in the name, is a test of true martial arts, is like arguing boxing or wrestling is. Or simply putting them together and then arguing that that is. No, you need true transferable skills in order to do this. That's why they're called codified systems and traditions of combat practices. Because you have to practice those skills and then apply them. They're practiced for a variety of reasons. Entertainment. Okay. But really, the most important, obviously, is self-defense and military and mental and spiritual development. But to law enforcement, they have their applications in what have you, in competition, which is basically like entertainment when you do it in the way the UFC has, but when you do it in a traditional way that masters have always done to understand which students are best, which is sparring, then it becomes a true competition of combat practices and not a competition for the purpose of entertainment. I'll say it again because a lot of you don't get that, and that's very important to this. When a competition is done in the way that the UFC is, or boxing, or wrestling, or WWF, then it is for the purpose of entertainment. But when you compete in a very traditional way that masters have always done in many different martial arts, and pretty much every martial arts, to have always put on competitions in order to figure out which students are better than others, then it becomes an actual test of who has the best combat applications. And for those of you who know anything about combat, you don't want to be on the ground grappling somebody in battle. The ground is a weapon, and you can also be easily murdered on the ground. So grappling becomes irrelevant in true competition. But when it comes to entertainment, it can be quite entertaining to see people getting their face bashed in by somebody on top of them, or get their legs twisted, or just just the same reason wrestling is entertaining. Grappling can be entertaining. So where was I? Okay, going on to the Project for the New American Century. The Project for the New American Century, PNAC, was a neoconservative think tank based in Washington, D.C. that focused on United States foreign policy. It was established as a nonprofit educational organization in 1997, several years after the Cold War supposedly ended, I might add, and founded by William Crystal and Robert Kagan. The PNAC's stated goal was to promote American global leadership. The organization stated that American leadership is good both for America and for the world, and sought to build support for a Reaganite policy of military strength and moral clarity. Now, those of you who have been paying attention, you know that America's idea of morality is much different than Christian morality. Okay, it's a secular nation, not a Christian nation. The eclogue of Virgil, the dollar bill, the new order of the ages, which they admit themselves, the secret societies and the individuals who put it on the dollar bill, who are still in power today, and it doesn't take a genius such as myself to figure that out, admitted that it refers to the eclogue of Virgil, which any scholar will tell you, spells it out in Latin, and it says the reign of Saturn, the reina of Saturna, which is the reign of Saturn, paraphrasing. As far as the Latin, I forgot the exact Latin. It's like the reina de Saturna, whatever, but it says the reign of Saturn is the new order of the ages, the new age of Saturn. So America's morality is not based on the God of the Bible, but a pagan Roman god, Saturn or Kronos. And this becomes quite obvious when you see that there's Greek societies in college and so on and so forth, and Freemasons and on and on. It becomes painfully obvious that this is the case. And I've gone over that in the video I just made. I haven't uploaded yet at this point, but I probably will have released it by the time you see this video, where it says flat out that Masons were persecuted by the Inquisition and other groups for leading to immorality and atheism. And of course, there's something like 30 million atheists in America, and atheism is on the rise, and so on and so forth. And you can see that, when it comes to the technological institutions, they promote atheism. Dawkins and Hawking, okay? These cocksuckers that, are famous atheists and associated with, technological institutes, institutes of technology, what have you, the technocracy, which, as you can see on record, is a part of the Cold War technological competitions. And so the fact that they're concerned with rivalry at sporting events, none of these things have to do with spirituality. Spirituality is studied by the military and the FBI and what have you for the purpose of controlling the masses, but there is no spiritual competition as such other than controlling civic institutions, including churches. So when you look at this, yes, it's a bunch of shallow little cowards who have trivialized, they have, degenerated into materialism and to demean and degrade martial arts as some sort of a sporting event. And every time I talk about it as it is meant to be talked about, and I bring up fighting for honor, they are silent because they are trying to avoid the things that highlight their error and their pathetic, inferior argument. To say martial arts should be trivialized into sports, into UFC type competition, is like saying the church and the Bible should be just another book gone over by the book club and that we shouldn't have churches. It's just as bad as saying that. Well, the Bible is a nice little story, and we're going to have book clubs instead of churches, and they're going to go over a whole bunch of books, and every once in a while they'll touch on the Bible. It's like doing that. That's how bad it is to take something as sacred and as historical and traditional and has to do with mental and spiritual development, which also destroys their argument about psychiatry. How could somebody who develops himself mentally and spiritually better than anyone else be more out of touch with reality than everyone else? It just, when you truly look at martial arts in its true form and you truly accept that I'm the best and that they're hiding from my challenge because they know this and they're trying to turn it into some sort of a UFC challenge, which I refuse to do for reasons you should understand by now with this video alone, much less the other videos that I've gone over it, then you realize, yes, these are materialistic dogs. This is their Saturn little culture. Most Americans don't know what is going on, or they wouldn't be okay with it. They would demand that they do it my way. They would demand that they stop doing psychological work. Well, not even my way, the traditional way. They would demand that they stop with their massive propaganda campaigns and their psychological warfare. They would demand that America would stop using technology on its citizens under the pretense for preparing for a war that has electronic weapons, energy weapons, these different, weapons that America is practicing on its civilians with the same way they practiced mind control on, disenfranchised people. They would demand that they stop. Okay? So basically, I've proven definitively the true definition of martial arts, why my martial arts competition is a true one, why the fact that they're running a psyop on me and there's thousands of people doing it from, different gyms and different military and different groups that do hand-to-hand combat proves that, yes, because of what they're doing, they have definitively proven me the top martial artist, because it shows that they're aware of what's going on and the significance of it as well. Plus, they have a massive network. Thank you.